The Big Valley was bold, emotional, and unforgettable, but behind its iconic scenes are real lives marked by quiet exits and tragic ends. Some stars vanished too soon, while others faded quietly. These are the Big Valley stars we've sadly lost. Barbara Stanwyck was already a legend when she stepped into the role of Victoria Barkley, the strong, unshakable matriarch of the Barkley clan. She led the Big Valley with quiet authority, commanding every frame without ever having to raise her voice. By the time she arrived on the show, she had already racked up 4 Oscar nominations and an Emmy for The Barbara Stanwyck Show. Off-screen, she was intensely private, never remarried after her divorce, and rarely gave interviews. On January 20th, 1990, Barbara passed away at the age of 82 in Santa Monica after a congestive heart failure. Her death closed the chapter on a woman who ruled both the silver screen and the television frontier with equal force. And if Victoria was the spine of the family, Jared Barkley was its mind. Richard Long played him with a blend of sharp intellect and quiet charm, earning a devoted fan base during the show's run. Before the Big Valley, he'd starred in The Nanny and The Professor and Maverick, always portraying men with poise and polish. But behind the scenes, his health was a constant concern. He battled heart trouble for much of his adult life and even survived a major attack in the 1960s. Sadly, he didn't survive the next. On December 21st, 1974, Richard died of a heart attack at just 47. Her life and career ended just as she seemed poised to leave a lasting legacy. And then there's Peter Breck, who brought the fiery Nick Barkley to life. He was all instinct and intensity. The loudest of the Barkley brothers, Nick was a punch of adrenaline in every scene, charging into bar fights and family disputes with reckless loyalty. After the Big Valley, he moved to Canada, where he taught acting and performed in regional theater. In his final years, he stepped out of the spotlight entirely. On February 6, 2012, Peter passed away at age 82 after a long battle with dementia. His voice may have gone quiet, but to fans, Nick Barkley's roar never truly faded. Charles Briles vanished from the Big Valley almost as soon as it began. He played Eugene Barkley, the bookish youngest son with a quiet soul, but just as the show was finding its rhythm, Briles was drafted. The Vietnam War took him away from Hollywood, and by the time he returned, the show had moved on without him. He didn't chase the spotlight again. Instead, he stepped behind the scenes, working in production and quietly building a different kind of career. On March 18, 2003, he passed away from congestive heart failure at just 56. Though he appeared in only a handful of episodes, fans never forgot Eugene, the Barkley who left too soon and never got a proper goodbye. And speaking of faces we never forgot, Napoleon Whitings was always just behind the family, watching, listening, and grounding the scene. He played Silas, the Barkley family's house servant, with calm grace and quiet dignity. Though the role came with the limitations of its time, Whiting infused it with an unspoken wisdom. Long before the Big Valley, he'd built a career on stage and radio, where roles for black actors were scarce and respect even scarcer. But he made his mark. Whiting lived a long life out of the spotlight, passing away on July 22, 1984, at 85. His name rarely tops cast lists, but his impact is felt in every quiet glance and every steady step through the Barkley household. And while some stayed in front of the camera, Gail Kobe chose to lead from behind it. She appeared on the Big Valley in a single guest role, but that wasn't where her influence ended. After acting in classics like Peyton Place and Twilight Zone, Kobe stepped into the producer's chair and changed television forever. She helped shape The Bold and the Beautiful, Guiding Light, and The Edge of Night, becoming a rare woman with real power in daytime TV. Her vision was sharp, her standards exacting, and her legacy long. She passed away on August 1st, 2013, at the age of 81. Some stars disappear quietly, but Gail Kobe helped build the world behind the screen, and in doing so, left a legacy bigger than any single role. Next up is James Whitmore, who had one of those faces you'd swear you saw everywhere. He only guest starred on The Big Valley, but his career stretched far beyond the frontier. He won a Tony, an Emmy, and even earned an Oscar nomination. He played presidents, farmers, convicts, and everyday men with equal weight. But it was his voice, grounded, firm, weathered, that lingered most. In later years, he returned to stage work, delivering one-man shows that left audiences breathless. He died on February 6, 2009, at the age of 87 from lung cancer. The tributes poured in, but for fans of that brief Big Valley appearance, it was always about that quiet authority, the kind that never had to shout to be heard. And if some losses hit like a slow fade, others struck like a jolt. Warren Oates died suddenly in April of 1982 from a heart attack. He was just 53. One moment, he was lining up another role, then silence. That abrupt ending almost felt on brand for a man who rarely slowed down. On The Big Valley, he made a brief but unforgettable appearance. Just a few scenes, but they burned with that signature edge. Off-screen, he was no different. Restless, electric, unpredictable. He lived like his characters, always moving, never looking back. Warren didn't get a long goodbye, but in a way, he didn't need one. His performances never aged. They hit hard, vanished fast, and left behind the kind of presence you don't forget. Speaking of unforgettable legends, Burgess Meredith already had a towering career long before stepping onto the Big Valley set. He was the man who brought Mickey to life in Rocky, who played the Penguin in Batman, who carved a niche in everything from Shakespeare to sci-fi. He lived many lives in film and television, but in his final years, illness crept in. He battled Alzheimer's and melanoma, and on September 9th, 1997, he died at the age of 89. He was never just a guest star. He was one of the last true character giants, the kind that reshaped the scene just by entering it. And if Warren Oates left with a bang, Ford Rainey slipped out with barely a whisper. He passed away peacefully at home on July 25th, 2005. He was 95. No headlines, no tributes, just a quiet farewell from a man who spent decades doing quiet work. A regular face on the Big Valley, Rainey didn't command attention. He earned it slowly, scene by scene. His steady, fatherly presence anchored the chaos around him. He didn't need to raise his voice or steal the spotlight. From early westerns to roles in Matlock and The $6 Million Man, his 5-decade career was built on subtlety and grace. Even into his 90s, he kept working, showing up, and delivering. Remember John Drew Barrymore? Yes, that Barrymore. He was part of one of Hollywood's most iconic dynasties, and when he appeared on the Big Valley, he brought with him a mix of mystery and intensity. But behind the screen, John's life was scattered by addiction and instability. Though gifted, he struggled to maintain a consistent career, often disappearing from sets or withdrawing entirely from Hollywood. His later years were marked by illness and reclusion. On November 29, 2004, he died of cancer at the age of 72. His daughter, Drew Barrymore, later spoke of a man she barely knew, whose brilliance and brokenness were never far apart. They helped define an era, then disappeared into silence. When you revisit the Big Valley, can you feel the weight of who's no longer there?